Dude, trust me, the amount of like restarts I do when I do a video, it takes like an hour
Yeah.
to get that 10-minute video.
All right, let's do it. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Taco Time Pod. Oh, it's clipping like crazy. Why are you so mad? Calm down. All right, last try. It's gonna work this time. I feel it. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Taco Time Podcast. I'm joined today by Tyler from GAMI TCG. Who are you, sir?
Hey man, how's it going?
Good, buddy.
You said I'm Tyler. I like selling a lot of shiny cardboard on eBay. Been in FAB since like what? December 2020 is when I first started up,
Okay.
and it like steadily just took over what I was buying, and then finally just took the dive into almost exclusively buying and selling Flesh and Blood probably like 6-7 months ago now.
Okay, so I know you started with Pokemon. Is that still
Yeah.
on the radar? Do you still actively pick stuff up, or is it just kind of like on the back burner? If you see a good deal, you might grab it. But
Yeah, I like buying like if I find a good deal on some sealed products, like good example, like I don't have distribution or anything like that, at least yet. But looking at Scarlet Violet 1, like everyone hates the set, and you could pick them up. I was picking them up for like 95 shipped by the case.
Mhm.
So after cash back, it's literally below what people pay at distribution.
Okay,
When it gets like to that level, I'll pick it up. But I'm more actively engaged with Flesh and Blood. I prefer the singles game, trying to buy grade,
sure.
that kind of stuff.
So you said you started in 2020. What set was that?
It was the second print of Crew 1
Okay.
just hit. That was actually the first thing I picked up. I bought two Crucible firsts boxes for like $100 a piece. And by the time they got to my door, like 4 days later,
Mhm.
they were like 600 each. So I was like, all right, well, this is stupid. Sold one immediately,
Yeah.
and that thing was just like, I was just like itching to, it's free money. I'm like, all right, I gotta try opening this thing. And I hit, like, I actually still have it. This,
The
you can see
Scaletta
it
of
at all.
Destiny.
Yeah. And at the time, that was pre-banned, so that was like the best hit of the set, majestic wise. And I got that, Krunic, foil spoils, and spoils were like insane back then too.
Yeah.
But yeah, ever since, like it just slowly became more and more of what I was picking up and paying attention to. And yeah, like around this time last year, I found myself like only buying Flesh and Bloods. I was like, you know what? Let's just do that.
Just deep dive on it.
Yeah.
I got into Fab last year, and so I didn't see the craze of like even Monarch. Like even though the Monarch one was like almost false scarcity because of the whole drama
Yeah.
that happened with it. What was it like back then with trying to get product? Was it as hard as some people say it was? Well, like, did you have to really deep dive and search for it, or was it pretty easy to just go on some website and find it?
I mean, if you're trying to find like Mon one around like 100, even 150 back then, like good luck. You're gonna get a couple boxes maybe.
Okay,
I think like the TCG player sale at the time, like they actually sold them for 100 a box, and outside of that, you weren't finding them for anything
okay,
great. But at the same time, like if you're buying to just play and not sell anything, like that sucks. But if you're constantly flipping, like you're also flipping at those high numbers at the same time as you're buying at those high numbers. So like
sure.
you kind of just rode the wave down.
Was that like a worldwide situation, or was that just here in the States because the game was so new? Or do you
I
remember?
mean, again, we live in the U.S., so like we only focus on what's in
Yeah,
the U.S.
yeah, yeah.
But I couldn't really tell you about the rest of the world. Like I feel like it was more like the U.S. was the major market at the time,
Sure.
and we were all looking at those high prices. But at the same time, people were like throwing money at $200 foil celestial cataclysms or something like that.
Jesus. Because what I'm wondering is, I wonder if the guys in Australia and New Zealand were just cleaning up, like just shipping over to the States and making a ton of money because they probably had. So that's the thing. I would imagine that those countries just had an abundance of fab, but maybe not as well. I don't know, you know?
Yeah, no, I can't speak for those guys that much, but yeah, no, everyone was trying to get like riding all the way up to like 400 a box, like
Wow.
crazy stuff like that, and everyone was just acting like it didn't exist.
Yeah, I
And again,
know.
I wasn't playing at the time either, so I don't know about like the draft experience. Like,
Sure.
you were the one that actually got me playing the game,
Yeah,
so
yeah, that's a funny story. We'll go over that, but
yeah, well,
um, yeah, because I was talking to Mitch, who used to work at Finch, our old LGS, and he was telling me
yep.
that when Mon first came out, I think his boss was like, "Hey, man, I'm gonna get like a really limited shipment of Monarch. If you want a box or two, let me know." And so Mitch was like, "Yeah, I'll take a box." And he cracked it, and I think he opened a cold foil. It would have been a library, right? Yeah, library.
Yeah, library.
And he sold it for $5,000, which is insane. Because now you can get it
Dude,
for like maybe 500, but that's wild,
yeah,
man.
I have a bunch of stories of that. Like, well, first of all, what I really liked doing was buying other people's TCG player kits that had those two cold foils because I knew the boxes weren't searched if it was still sealed because I
Sure.
was still in the era where you pull that one legendary, Aljo the Keys is dead. And I just got on this streak of hitting carrying husks like over and over. I still have them.
Yeah.
I hit like 6 or 7 carrying husks like back to back to back. And I remember they were like 2,000 a piece, and my dumbass,
Wow.
instead of selling it, I sent it off to Beckett to get graded. So by the
Sure.
time it got back to me, it was like 500,
And they're all,
which is still crazy. But
were they all like nines? I've been trying to find a clean cold, because I have a cold foil carrying husk and it's a nine. And I've been trying to find a clean one, but the corners on Monarch first are so bad, dude.
yeah,
I cannot find anything in good quality.
I I graded all my ones that I thought were gradable. I hit most of them were 9.5s,
Okay.
but I mean that was probably like 3 copies, and that hit 9.5. I think 2 or 3 hit nines,
Hmm.
and the rest are just like they'd be struggling to get nines just because of
Sure.
that corner issue.
Yeah, man, it's so bad. Um, so before crew, you were all Pokemon.
Yeah.
How did you discover Fab? Because the way that I discovered Fab was really stupid. I think I was on like Reddit and there was a pop up ad
Yeah.
or something. It was like
Really?
completely, yeah. There was like a banner ad, like Google AdSense randomly insert thing that's relatively related to the thing you're looking up right now. You know?
I can't like pin it down to one thing. It was probably Rudy, honestly. Like I was a Rudy patron for a year already at that point,
Sure.
so I'm pretty sure I ignored when he did Crew One, and then finally I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And then he was doing a couple like Welcome to Wrath, like get 2 boxes for super cheap.
Sure.
Even those, I remember like you couldn't get WTR Unlimited for a short while, and like I sold one of those boxes for like 150
Wow. Okay.
back early 2021.
Yeah, it's really interesting how the market changed so quickly. Because when I got into the game, um, you were able to pick up, and it's going back up because they discontinued it. But you were able to get boxes of WTR for like $50 cash, like all day long.
Yeah, that was like that time I was saying it was sold for a lot. That was like when it was only Belgium, and then the ones you're talking about are like more of the Japanese print. Like they just flooded us with Japanese print. Like
Sure.
I remember when they announced like ARC WTR saying they're out of print,
Mhm.
but then we just got like a full like a boat dropped off a distribution of WTR that just took like a year to churn through.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. And so, what was the market like for the first two sets before that? Was Arcane insanely expensive and Alpha insanely expensive already at that point, or was it? Has it come up? Because I noticed the market ebbs and flows like dramatically. It's like almost like crypto, right? There's a time when a box of Alpha, I think, and it's so weird the way that pricing works for this game because everybody goes off TCG Player and eBay. So
Yeah.
if like the last sold is 2 grand, but the cheapest offer is 5K, people are like, "Oh, 5K, I know what I got," and it's like, no, that's been sitting there for 8 months.
Yeah.
Like, so was it a situation where you could still buy boxes of Arc first and WTR first relatively easy, or were they already like insanely expensive at that point?
I've actually never bought a WTR Alpha box. That's like always been an issue with me of buying, is I always like nickel and dime myself. I buy like those cheaper $100 items, and I never buy like just take the hit and buy the big expensive stuff. I'm
Sure.
trying to do that more now, um, with picking up like more expensive cold foils when I can. But I mean, the Arc boxes I bought around like 900 a piece
Okay.
roughly, and like they were like on clearance from some place. Like they wanted to get rid of them at
Interesting.
that price.
Interesting.
Like that was a little bit before Worlds, like during that dip. That was the last time I bought them.
Okay. And I think
But
they're still
what you
pretty
just
close to
touched
that,
on
right?
there, what you just touched on, sorry,
No,
but
yeah, go.
with like the crypto thing, like crypto and TCGs, like they kind of go hand in hand. Like if crypto's going up, like people just want to get rid of it and put it into something physical. I feel like
Sure.
And then when crypto tanks, like then the market just goes dead, you know?
Yeah, I don't know, because like the real huge TCG boom happened during the pandemic, right? Like
Yeah.
where the prices went absolutely insane, and I don't know, and so did crypto, and I don't know if that's because nerds buy crypto and nerds buy cards, or if it's because the government was like, "Here's unlimited money, do whatever
Yeah.
with it," and people are like, "All right, I'm just gonna buy everything I've ever wanted," you know?
Yeah. No, I literally remember when that like what was it, like 1400 or something like that hit,
Mhm.
and then like my store just got wiped out like that week.
Yeah,
It was like everyone was just buying everything.
I mean, good for you.
Yeah. No, yeah, I was like, great, just double down on it.
Yeah, of course. So you do a lot of graded stuff too. The grade,
I try to, yeah.
the graded stuff. What was that like during the pandemic? Because I don't really mess with grading too much. Like I've graded
Yeah.
a few things, but from what I understand, it was absolutely like, oh, you're on a 50-week backlog, like
Oh
insane
yeah.
weight.
Yeah, I think the last one I sent was like summer of 2020 and I got it back like like late 2021 maybe
Jesus, that's
at
insane.
PSA, and Beckett was just like a black hole of like you hear nothing for years at the cheapest price,
Wow.
which is like kind of what started a little bit of that mania
Uh huh.
going on, is like you just couldn't send cards in the first place to get graded. It's like what was out there was out there. So whatever craze like took over like in Pokemon, like say Gen 3 like EX cards just like blow up.
Yeah.
Guess what? Like you're not grading any of them, and then like a holo from that, there's 10 copies out there maybe because nobody cared about them before.
Hmm.
So then they just go to insane prices.
I see. I see. And that was kind of the start of the off-label bootleg grading companies too, right? Not
Yeah.
off-label, like you
Yeah.
have CGC was a big one. I was talking to somebody about that yesterday about like CGC grades not really being worth a premium. And then I was thinking about like CGC's been around for a long time. But I know they just started doing grades during
Yeah.
the pandemic, right? So
Yeah.
is that was I know that it's still true that each community kind of has their own preferred grading company. Like Pokey is probably PSA. Magic and Fab is probably still Beckett for the boomers. Although we do see PCG kind of taking over the Fab market just because Matt's involved with that.
Yeah.
Um, does that matter still? Like, do people care? Do they just want cards that are slabbed, or is there still a premium for PSA over CGC that's significant enough to make it matter?
In Pokemon, yeah, like if turnaround times are the same and costs the same, like just send a PSA over CGC, like you'll get a small premium for like CGC 10s
Yeah,
over a PSA 10, but like a gem mint 9.5 to 10, like the PSA is always going to win out. And there's been 100 controversies with CGC, but like the thing that really rubbed me the wrong way with them is, and it's kind of what PCG US is doing right now with Fab. When they came out of the gate, like they were insanely strict, and I saw people just like get burned. They sent 1,000 cards,
uh-huh.
and almost all of them are 8.5s, which
Wow.
8.5 might as well be worthless
Yeah, yeah,
at
yeah,
that point, you know. So they just got completely wrecked, and then they realized no one wanted to send to them anymore because they're handing out 8.5s,
yeah.
and they made it a lot more lenient, which is kind of like how I feel because with PCG, it's like the U.S. branch is a completely different entity than the ones overseas, to my understanding.
Yeah.
Like the one here is China Fireball.
CFB, yeah.
Yeah. And from what I've sent, like maybe I just caught a grader on a bad day, but like they were very, very strict. They made me like doubt if I had eyeballs. Like my first sub with them.
It's interesting that you say that because I remember at Worlds they brought in people to grade on site. They were doing like a
Yeah.
get it back in a day kind of special, and the Aussies and the New Zealand guys were here, and I would imagine that they probably brought some of their graders as well.
Yeah.
And there was people getting grades back that were 9.5s that like there's no way in hell if you send your card in America to Vegas that card's getting a 9.5.
Yeah.
And so I wonder why there's such a disconnect. Like it's so inconsistent with PCG. It makes
Yeah.
me so reticent to even send anything in sometimes because I'm so
Yeah.
afraid that like I'm gonna, you know, it's not even the issue of time because actually PCG is pretty good about timing, right? They're
Yeah,
pretty
they're
fast.
really good.
But the problem is that, and maybe it's just a me thing, and I know a lot of people that have done it. Sending something that's worth $3, $4, $5,000 in the mail terrifies me. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And to
Yep.
send so much money in the mail and then get back a bunch of 8s and 8.5s in America that I know if somebody in like Australia or New Zealand sent it would get a 9.5. It's just like very frustrating.
Yep. And it became a thing, and I've heard like whispers about it here in the U.S. too, of people just buying. The people used to just buy like CGC 8.5s,
Uh-huh.
crack them, send them to PSA to get PSA 9s.
Yeah.
So you get them for dirt cheap because no one wanted them. And people are kind of doing the same with PCG cards graded in the U.S. They buy a 9, crack it, send it to Beckett, get a 9.5.
Sure. Yeah.
Something like that. But I've heard nothing but good things from the people using the other branches. It's just like the U.S. one that people have had concerns about.
Yeah, I've been watching John Ward and Flukenbox. He
Yeah.
probably sends all of his cards that are worth grading to PCG.
My understanding is like right down the street.
Yeah, it's like
Just
right
walk
next to his house, from what I understand. Because
Yeah.
there are PCG branches at a card shop. It's in an LGS just upstairs, right? So he just goes to his LGS, drops off a bunch of stuff, and gets it back in like 4 hours. And I'm wondering, if there's a way, or if anybody's tried to do this, where they're just internationally shipping stuff over to the easier offices to get the premium on the cards.
I guarantee you people aren't would. And on top of it, they have fully rolled out metal labels too, which we still have to pay
$10, right?
$5 more per card
Oh, is it 5
to
now?
get metal. $5 more.
I see.
So I think what if you send? I think it was like if you send 25, it sounds like 15 a card.
Okay.
But then metal is like 22 a card.
Okay, I
Something
see.
like that.
Yeah,
Last
because
I checked.
for a while when it first came out, it was 10, and then I'm wondering when the Fab Slabs come out if there's going to be a premium on that. And I mean, I'm excited for the Fab Slabs, and
Yeah.
I have a bunch of cards I'm probably going to send to just get cracked and reslabbed.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. The grading thing is a world that I am not well versed in. So, I mean, is it better to just send it to Beckett and hope for the best at this point for value? Do you think?
I mean, I think just because of like how much stricter they are,
Uh-huh.
from my experience at least. Again, like people could have varying ones, but like I'd rather wait the extra couple months, send them to Beckett, and instead of like get a quicker turnaround time with worse grades, and then you also get a premium with Beckett.
Yeah.
But like my whole goal is to have a Beckett sub going out like every 2 weeks. So if you get on that train of every 2 weeks, you get a Beckett sub out. You do that for long enough, and you're getting a Beckett sub back every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But the turnaround time doesn't matter anymore. It's just a matter of sourcing that many gradable cards in Flesh and Blood, which is not easy.
Yeah. Do you think we've reached a point where print runs are big enough that like that kind of cold foil get your stuff graded boom is not over, but like that insane value premium you can get is gone? Or is this just like a short-sighted problem? Do you think that like in 5 years we'll look back and all the stuff that we sent out that's graded that gets an extra $50 is now getting an extra $1,000 or something like that?
I mean, graded premium's like always going to be there. If it's not there, then no one would do it.
Sure.
You know, like it still exists in Pokemon, and they're grading tens of thousands of cards every single day.
Yeah, the print runs in Pokemon
You know
are
what I mean?
insane, right?
It's crazy.
Because
Yeah.
I'm in a couple Pokemon groups, and the only reason I'm in them is I think it's hilarious because Pokemon people are petty, bro. Like I'll look at the for sale thread.
Dude,
So
I'm so happy like not dealing with selling to them anymore. Honestly,
Yeah.
like it's like the smallest little thing, and they're just like they're all over it.
my favorite is somebody will be like, "Oh man, I cracked what's the big one? The Moonbeam? Is it Moonbeam?"
Umbreon, yeah.
Yeah. So they'll be like, "I cracked this. I'm so excited." And then instead of the comments being like, "Dude, so sick" or "stoked for you," it's like 50 guys with like Beckett black labels that are like just flexing. Like, "I got one too. Not
Yeah.
for sale. Not for sale. Not for sale."
That happens a lot in Pokemon. Which is,
Pokemon's a funny
like
world, man.
it's so different from Fab because like I'll talk about grading like locally and no one else grades, so they're just like whatever.
Yeah.
get it out of here.
Yeah,
You know, let me kick your ass again real fast instead. Well, it's fair.
Oh man. The other thing though is like the price premium on graded Pokemon is insane. It's like double.
Some of them, yeah. No, there's like still, and I mean, there's other YouTube channels like that I watch. Like they'll just openly talk about these plays where like you could literally just buy a bunch of them off TCG Player or wherever.
Mhm.
Probably not TCG Player because a lot of people dump their ungradable cards on there.
Sure.
But you just turn them around and you just make $100 on a $200 card like over and over again.
Yeah,
It's
because like
just sustainable.
a PSA 10 is not exactly a difficult thing to get, right? Especially on Pokemon because the printing quality is pretty decent.
especially Japanese Pokemon. It's like it's beautiful.
It-
It's really good.
Is there a market for that though? Like I know there is a market for sure, but like do people, because you can't play with those cards, right? And you can't just like I guess you display. Do people play Pokemon? Is that a thing?
Some people think it's like some like 5%, like if
Wow.
that. People that like are in that hobby that play it. Like all the channels I follow, like not like most of them own businesses where all they do is flip Pokemon.
Uh-huh.
None of them even know how to play the game, like in any
Wow.
way. It'll
Wow.
be funny. I remember a couple months back, like they updated their prize structure for like local events,
Uh-huh.
and like the Pokemon community went crazy because they're like, "Oh, look at this crazy Charizard you can get, but like you have to play." And it was like this weird thing to them. I'm like, dude, every game does that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not. It's literally just an armory promo, basically.
Were they pissed because they couldn't get them easily? Is that what happened?
Yeah, they're like trying to like buy them off all the players, and like you realize it's an 8-year-old that's winning that thing.
Yeah.
They're not on base.
Yeah. It's so funny, man, because we'll play at some of our locals, and they'll have a Pokemon tournament going on at the same time, and it's like the the age range is so funny. So it's like 8 and 10 year olds, right? And
Yep.
then like 20 to 25 year old dudes or 18 to 25 year old dudes who are way too confident about playing Pokemon. Like they're just like so cool. And then like the dads who are like in their 50s and 60s. So
Yeah.
in that way, I guess it's a good thing, right? Because you have like a wide range of people enjoying the game.
Yeah. Generational.
But the other thing that I think is really funny is how the spread of serious versus casual is all in the same place. There's some people that take it way seriously, and there's some people that just don't care at all. They're just there to have fun, you know? But I will say, like, I think the cool thing about Pokemon is, like, from what I've understood, it's really cheap to play.
Yeah. And if you wanted to like bling out a deck, it would get super expensive. But like, I've heard something like $30 you can get a full deck just ready to go,
Yeah.
which
Like,
is awesome. That's perfect for like a younger demographic. Get into TCGs in general. Like start with whatever you want to start. I'm just happy that anyone's getting into TCGs nowadays. You know.
yeah. Yeah. So back to Flesh and Blood.
Yeah.
So you started in 2020. You started with Crucible of War. And then I met you actually on eBay, which was really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
I
I
had,
actually remember what you bought too.
yeah. It was a Lord of the Wind, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was literally a Lord of Wind, and I like printed out the label, and it was literally like 5 minutes down the street from my house. And I'm like, where are you playing?
Yeah. You sent me a message. You're like, where do
Where are
you
you
play?
playing, dude?
So funny. And I think the first tournament you went to was like my second tournament ever.
Yeah, you were actually my first win as well.
Nice.
I brought that. I brought like just a bullshit like KO deck. So I'm like, all right, well, if I have a chance of winning, yeah, that's like my only chance is just high roll, like, roll sixes. I didn't even have Gamma's gloves or anything,
Just went for it.
and then I played like two like pro tour level players were like grinding for points at the time.
Uh-huh.
And then you're the third game that day. I remember.
That sounds fun. It was good times. That's before like anything mattered. So are you?
Yeah, that was.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you still playing in Vegas like pretty regularly, or?
Yeah, I just moved into a new house, which is like a little bit farther from two of the stores that play on Thursday nights. Like
Yeah.
they're kind of like across town for me now, so it's hard for me to get to.
Mhm.
But I still try to play every Saturday afternoon. People's Card Shop
Okay.
here in Las Vegas. Awesome community that always goes there. And then yeah, I played in the RTN last Sunday,
How'd that go?
dude. So like I haven't even gotten to play CC in like a month just because of this whole move.
Sure.
So I wasn't expecting anything great, and like Vegas, we don't have like a huge player base like you guys do in SoCal,
Mhm.
but like the quality of player, like they're all freaking monsters here,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. So I was like, oh yeah, we'll see how. Like I kind of care because Nats is in Vegas now.
Yeah.
So I go in, I go 2-0 like right away. It was 5 rounds. So I'm like, oh, I got this. I only need win one more game. Maybe I'm already in for all I know.
Sure.
And then I just like straight downhill. I get crushed 2 games in a row by Bravo, who just like me and him just like went straight face racing each other.
Mhm.
And then I rolled into the one Lexi that was there.
Okay.
Who that's like my worst matchup.
Yeah.
And then the winning in was against a Dromai, and like I sit across from him, and he was not happy to see Reinar on the other side of that matchup. And
Yeah.
I'm
I think
like,
that's a bad matchup for them.
Oh, it's horrible. I literally played Michael Hamilton like on Talishar the night before.
Uh huh.
I rolled 3 ones in a row and I still won that game. Like that's
Jesus.
how brutal that Dromai matchup is.
Wow.
And I like started out good and then just got like 4 dead hands. Where the most I could do is like block 2, swing 6.
Oh man.
And like he just chipped me down from like 22 to dead. Both my blood rushes were the last hand of the whole
No.
cycle. I was like, all right, I'm fine. Just like wait it out. Nope.
Didn't
So
happen.
yeah, I went 2-3. I think I was like 9th or 10th,
Oh
something like
man,
that.
that's rough.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a mutual friend, Peter, who I think just plays at dark. Does he play at Peoples or is he only at dark side?
He's mainly at Dark Side, yeah.
Okay.
But he already secured his invite. They all went up to I think Salt Lake like the week before that.
Yeah,
So he was one of the guys that already had it. So he just brought Kano for that day.
for sure. Yeah, I remember he was posting about Kano. I was telling him last time I saw him, I'm like, man, I need to come out there this summer. I want to see you, and I want to see
Yeah.
Peter and his roommate and all the boys out there. And he's like, yeah, dude, it'll be great. You'll show up. There'll be like 6 of us. It'll be awesome. He was saying there's like 6 people that play and like a couple other people that like don't really give a shit. So I don't know. I don't know about the Vegas
Yeah,
scene.
it's a little weird. How do I put it? I don't know. We have pretty much right now it's like Thursdays and Saturdays. We have armories, and then we have one store that does like a monthly, once every one Sunday a month.
Uh-huh.
Uh, the bigger issue, which like is something that I miss a lot from our old store, Finch, just like having owners that like really are invested in Flesh and Blood. Like
Sure.
you can tell a store that really likes the game versus one that's like putting it on because we asked for them to.
Sure.
You know, uh, so that's something that I definitely missed coming from Finch. Which we have now. We have a couple shops. TK's Boba Shop. I actually haven't been able to make it out to them on Thursdays, but they're doing a lot of like great things, like perfect like on ramp for new players.
Mhm.
Just like very very friendly, casual formats, great price support. You could really just tell like when a store really values the game.
Sure. Yeah, the thing with Finch is like I don't think that Finch cares about Fab at all. I think it was Mitch. And when Mitch quit, which is after you left when you
Yeah,
moved, like they'll still throw events, but we're in charge of everything. Like
yeah,
we'll go on Discord and be like, all right, guys, who's coming tonight? Are we gonna fire? Like, what's the format? We get there, like they kind of know how to run the armory. We have to tell them how many rounds they're supposed to be. Like they don't know where the promos are, so we have to be like, okay, this month's
yeah.
armory kit is this, and they're like,
I know that feeling now.
they'll just hand us the pile of promos. They'll hand like it to Joel or me, and they'll be like, "Do the thing." We're like, "All right, cool, we'll do the
Yeah,
thing for
that was
you."
the thing with Finch. Like both like Mitch and Brian's, like the guys running the shop at the time, both are like, yeah, we don't care about Magic. We want to play Fab.
Yeah,
That was nice.
they stuck Brian in the dungeon, so we never see him anymore. He's in the back warehouse now doing processing all day.
That's,
So halfway through the armory, maybe he'll pop in and be like, "What's up,
yeah,
guys?" But yeah, so Finch
yeah,
is sadly kind of it's alive, but just barely.
yeah. No, people's on Saturdays. Like it's kind of like that, where like we just kind of like show up and decide what we want to play. Like we played Shapeshifter last week,
Oh, okay.
which when we talked about it, I was like, "There's no way this is gonna work," and it was actually super fun. I think we did like one Dynasty pack, 3 History pack one, and then like Outsiders, some shit like that.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't done
But yeah,
Shapeshifter,
we
but I've
show
heard
up
it's
and play
really
what we
fun.
want.
I heard it's really
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, I did not think like I was looking at like just random piles. Like, there's no way this is gonna function. And I actually kind of liked it more than like the draft pods that we do a lot of the time.
Hmm. Draft is interesting. Like it's really dependent on the set. Like I think Outsiders draft is pretty decent. The last draft set was terrible. Uprising was so like it got so boring
I
so
I
quickly.
dodged playing a lot of that because I was mainly just playing CC at the time.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm kind of like burnt on Outsiders draft right now. We did WTR yesterday.
Okay.
The first time. That was my first time doing WTR. That was pretty good.
Who'd you
I
draft?
liked it. I
Reinhardt.
didn't want to play Reinhardt, but they forced me to play Reinhardt. And I was like, all right. I got like double red nimbleism, like pack one, pack two,
Okay.
and then I kept getting past red nimble strikes.
Oh
So I
man.
like actually built that like a whole deck around those, which round one did not work at all. I drew all the nimble strikes in one hand,
Uh-huh.
and like the rest of the games, it actually fired off, and it was pretty cool.
Nice. So okay, so really what I want to have you on for, other than catching
Yeah,
up with the buddies, is your experience with sales. Because we see the market kind of going a little bit crazy and then it ebbs and flows. And right now I think it's kind of on an upswing. And I wanted to get your experience with, market, how you predict the market to the best of your ability, what you do, how you sell. Like, tell me about the web store. Tell me about how you got into that. As now it seems like that's mostly your career, right? That's your full time. I know you're
yeah.
still in school, but
Yeah, I'm a full time student, and then honestly, like I ended up, um, uh, yeah, I'm pretty much like doing this as like the side thing while I'm in school now.
yeah,
Just because like you're not going to find many school jobs that pay you more than you could just do slinging cards online, honestly.
sure.
Um, yeah, right now is actually it's like a funny period to ask. Like the last 2 weeks have been like the first true like stagnant period that I've felt in flesh and blood in a long, long time. Where like nothing's crazy spiking, nothing's tanking. It's just stagnant, and prices are just there,
Hmm.
which I kind of like. Like I've just been accumulating the last couple weeks, but like sales have just been a little bit slower because of that. I guess like there's no hype going around.
Hmm.
The big thing with like the fab market is it's still very, very small like compared to like it's always compared to Magic or Pokemon or something like that, but like it's so much smaller that it's like a lot easier to get manipulated or
Yeah,
get prices to get like a little weird. Like one dude rolls in with 10 grand and they could drastically swing a market
sure.
in a couple weeks. And that I'm not even gonna say like that was happening a lot, but like hype builds around one class. Like Lexi or better yet, when Outsiders like was finally announced, the Azalea was in it,
Hmm.
and Crosswrap jumps from 30 like straight to 130
Hmm.
overnight.
Hmm.
And that's not one person buying it out. It's just everyone's like, oh, now I need to get Azalea stuff,
Hmm.
and then boom, they're gone. So it being so small, like you can kind of play into that game a lot of the time. Like something gets if you're like engaged and you're there the entire time,
Hmm.
you can just wait for it. You have a backlog of like my binder right here, just full of extra like legendaries or cold foils, that kind of shit. You could just wait for a spike and then start listing.
So when you see like a legendary that's like 20, $30, do you just buy the heck out of it? Is that like the plan or?
I mean, I'm not someone that likes to buy out a lot of things,
Mhm.
but one like a good example is like when tectonics or scabs like hit $35 a card, something like that. Like it's stupid in
Yeah.
my opinion. Like I get there's a lot of them out there. Like WTRU is heavily printed, but like again, just like walk through the thought process of you get one per case. If you're playing Bravo, you need that card.
Yeah. 100%.
You know what I mean? Like just getting the value cards like that because they will spike eventually, whether it be for a week or two or Bravo is now meta and it's $100 card now,
Sure.
which I don't think is unreasonable either.
No, I don't think so either. And I'm really surprised it hasn't happened yet, especially with tech plating, because like you're not running Tunic and Bravo, right? And
No,
there's been so many times when Bravo's been so close to being like a tier one deck, and it just never really gets past 50 bucks.
yeah, I don't know either. It happened with scabs for a minute. Like I remember I had like 15 scabs that I just accumulated from collections. Like I
Uh-huh.
wasn't even like intentionally buying them, but like I don't even know why it spiked, but it just spiked to $100 randomly, and then I just sold all of them sold, and I think I have like one left at 99.99,
They're that
and I'm
high
like
right
I don't
now,
want to get rid of them because like Brute is going to be there eventually.
of course.
It's just a waiting game, and if you have enough liquidity where you're moving, you can turn inventory and not have to like sell everything.
Hmm.
You can set things back that you just think are good value. Like that's really my whole goal is to like maintain a level of liquidity. That I could buy what I want to buy, and then when I find good deals, like Ghostly Touch, when it was like $20 a card, I was
Uh-huh.
like, all right, this is stupid. You know, another illusionist going to come, then it spiked to 55 or something like that randomly
Sure.
on Prism Hype,
I think
and I think now it's back to 25.
yeah, it fluctuates a lot. I think that the best example I've seen so far, as of late at least, is the fabled Command and Conquer. You were talking about like people just moving a little bit of money and it changes the market completely.
Yeah,
There was a time not too long ago where the Fabled Command and Conquer was like $350 to $400, and I remember thinking to myself like Heart of Findell's 120 at the time, right? And
No.
then Eyes $180, and like nobody wants shards because nobody plays Viscerai. I'm just gonna wait for the hype to die down. And that did not happen. So I was trying to get a playset eventually, but I noticed like recently it went up to like $1,000, and then it like started to creep its way back down, 800, 700, 900, somewhere in that. And then there was like 5 on TCG Player, and somebody bought 3 of them, probably for a playset, and it went back up to $1,500.
That's what I was getting at with like the game being so small.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't take much to swing something. You know what I mean? Like one YouTuber puts a little bit of hype into one card, and then it's gone. It's through the roof.
Yeah,
Not even through anything malicious or anything. It's just it can naturally happen like that.
yeah.
Or if you want to do it maliciously too, like that's not hard to do either.
I think there's a couple YouTubers that I won't name that have bad intentions when they do that stuff, but I think for the most part, people are just being observant of the market.
Yeah, that's what I think it's more than anything.
Yeah.
I usually don't think people are doing things maliciously until I like know for sure, you know.
Sure. I know of at least 1 or 2 people that basically just use FAB as like tax fraud.
Yeah.
Like, but for the most part, I think people, especially in FAB, like there's a handful of people that are like the go-to people, and like I always recommend you to people, but there's also like who's a big one, Hamil Patel, who's a guy out of
He's
Chicago.
huge. No, you can't put me and him in the same sentence.
No,
Dude.
but I mean like he's a dealer that's like just trying to move product. But then there's also dealers that try to manipulate the market, and like I wouldn't put him in that at all, because I've hit that guy up so many times, and he's been like, "Yeah, man, I'd rather just people get the card, so if I can make you a deal in a bulk order, like I got you, you know." But do you think what? How do I say this? How do you reach a critical mass? Is it just player base, or is it, because I feel like with the FAB scene, it's just such a small scene that like you have a lot. I feel like a lot of the sales and movement of product is peer-to-peer, person-to-person. They don't go through TCG Player as often. They don't go through eBay as often. So those public marketplaces that we're using to value cards, in my opinion, are like not the best representation of actual value. Do you think we get there when the game gets bigger inevitably, or how does that happen?
I think it's just it's size based. Like it's so small now that you could just go on a Discord. You could just type in whatever you want in a Discord.
Yep.
And you'll find it for a much better price than you'll probably get. I mean, self-sabotage, but like you'll probably find it better on there than you will on my store, like 99% of the time.
Yeah, but even eBay, like your store's on eBay, right?
Yeah.
And you always say in your videos, if you need something, look on eBay first before you buy it on TCG Player, because you mentioned all the time like Tekla Plasma Pistol, like the cold foil one.
Yeah.
It'll go up to like $100 on TCG Player, and they'll still be sitting on eBay for $40-$50 all day long.
Yep. I say that more of like just don't just take one price as like this is the end all be all. Like do a little bit of time to shop around. Now if you have enough expendable money, you don't care, you just want to buy it, then go ahead. But like generally the cycles of these, like the buyouts of what I see is it just gets bought out through TCG Player. And then maybe if there's enough strength behind it, then it goes to eBay to get bought out.
Sure.
But like sometimes I'll see full buyouts happen on TCG Player and they never even touch eBay.
Yeah.
And then people on Discords don't even realize it happened, and they're still letting them go for the old price, you know?
Yeah, it's funny because I've been trying to put together a set of rainbow foil alpha snatches.
Yeah.
And I have 2. I have 2. I need 1 more. And I found this guy on TCG Player who was selling one for like, I think $250, $300. And he posted on Discord the other day. And I tried to hit him up and he never responded. And I'm like, okay, this guy's trying to move it because he keeps moving the price. So I actually looked up his shop in Florida and called him. And I was like, hey, man. And so he's like, yeah, send me an email and we'll work out a deal. And so I sent him an email and he's like, yeah, this is the price based on last sales or whatever. And so I was like, well, actually, this is what the last sales have been, because I've been following it like a hawk, you know?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, that's like, you know, that's hearsay. Like, you have to prove it to me. And so I took a bunch of screenshots and I sent it to him. Like, there's one that moved for $100 here, $105 here, $110 here. And I sent him all these screenshots, and he ghosted me because I think he wants that big premium on the card. But it's like, man, dealing with these people sometimes is crazy hard. Um, why eBay over TCG Player? I know you said you're going to be doing an eBay video, so I don't want to steal the
Yeah.
thunder from yours, but give
No,
me
no,
a
you're
brief
good.
overview.
So eBay versus TCG Player is like one conversation, and there's another one to have with like eBay and TCG Player versus doing everything through Discord.
Sure.
And I remember you talking about this in a previous episode, and you kind of like made my point immediately of like, what's the first thing if you're trying to buy a card, like just something random, Black Tech Whisper.
Sure.
What are you gonna do if you want to buy that thing, not through TCG Player? Like, what are you gonna ask on the buy thread?
Just ask your friends want to buy Black Text. 85% of TCG Player or whatever.
That's what I was looking for. The 85%. Like it. Everyone always immediately asks for that like 15% off, which is more than the fees than we actually pay. I pay 12%.
Okay.
For in the first place. So immediately people want all that discount for themselves and not give it to the store. So like my general thing, if I don't know the person, I go, I'll give you 7% off low list.
Sure.
I save a little bit, and you save a little bit. You don't have to pay sales tax as well.
Sure.
Just like. So three things mainly. This is what I was going to bring up in the video. My main 3 points. Number one thing, which is the only reason I even got into selling cheap singles in the first place, eBay standard envelope. Like, do you know what that is?
No.
Have you gotten those before?
Teach me about that.
So eBay and I think like Etsy are the only two websites that I know for sure have it. They have tracked envelopes, like literally tracked just like a bubble mailer. So then there's no such thing as like I ship out a $5 card and they get it and they just file a dispute and say they never got it.
Okay.
You can't do that on eBay. It's tracked the whole way. It's kind of janky, but either way, it protects you.
Sure.
So like, I would not want to sell cheap singles for that reason alone. And then just like the reach that these websites give you versus going through Discords and stuff. Like here, I have my store pulled up right now. Let me see. I have right now 2,800 listings on eBay.
Okay.
A little bit more than that. Trying to offload that on a Discord or Facebook sounds like a freaking nightmare.
So it's the bookkeeping that's a big thing for you as well.
That's a big, eBay does all that for me too, to an extent. But like, I'm not trying to have to, like, I love talking flesh and blood, but I'm not trying to like haggle with a dozen different people for all my legendaries. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's just too time consuming, and you can't move volume like that. And then the third one, like the international shipping option with eBay, now it's complete. There's no fees either. Like you literally, anyone can buy it around the world. I ship it to an airport in Illinois, and I'm done. I'm good.
Okay.
Like they handle it from there. They handle all the disputes from there too. Like if it gets damaged on the way, eBay covers it, not me.
I see.
Like that alone is just enough value to make it worth that 12% in my mind.
Yeah, like I sold an E-Strike to some random guy on Discord like a month ago.
Yeah.
And, he's like, let me see your references. I showed him my references, all this stuff. It's like $30 card. It's not that expensive, right? I sold it for $30. And I go to, we have like a little like neighborhood business center that has like FedEx and UPS and all that stuff inside of it.
Yeah.
So I went over there and I was like, what's the cheapest way I can get this to this guy? He doesn't want to pay for extra shipping. I just wanted to make sure it gets there, right? And I throw it in. It cost me like $4, whatever.
Yeah.
And he emails me like 2 weeks ago and he's like, hey man, did you send the E-Strike? And I was like, yeah, I sent it out. You didn't get it yet? He's like, no. He's like, what kind of package is it in? I told him it's like in a small vanilla envelope, whatever. I tell him the deal. And I never hear from him again. So I'm like, oh man, I guess he got it, And I got it back in the mail yesterday, like return to sender.
I get them all the time.
Yeah. And I was looking at it and everything's filled out to what he told me. And I sent him a message. I was like, hey man, did you ever get the E-Strike? Like knowing that he didn't. He's like, yeah, I never got it. And I was like, why didn't you say anything? But I'm looking at it and the package is fine. The address is the same one he gave me and it just didn't get there. And so luckily for me, like, I'm not a shop and he didn't ruin my reputation. Because if it's me, I'm pissed, right? And I'm going to go flame the person on Discord or Facebook Marketplace or whatever. So I have to go send that out after we do the podcast. But having somebody there, aka eBay, to like take care of those disputes so you don't have to worry about it seems pretty invaluable. So 10% is really not that big of a deal, right?
And on top of it, like if you have a package and it says delivered, like eBay gets a lot of shit for not protecting sellers.
Mm-hmm.
If your package says delivered, they're gonna protect you,
Okay.
especially if it's like you with thousands of positive feedback versus a guy with, maybe 50 and all he does is buy. Like they're gonna side with you.
Okay.
I've never had them not side with me, and I actually had an example recently of, ironically, uh, dealing with a Pokemon influencer on Instagram,
Okay.
which is the only reason I took it off eBay. I don't like taking things off eBay.
Sure.
Um, and we came up with this deal. It was a pretty fair price, and same as always, I ship it out next day. I take pictures of the box, send them the tracking number, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Delivered 3 days later. Never hear from the guy. A month later, he messaged me on PayPal because I guess he lost our DMs,
Sure.
saying that he never got it.
Okay.
And I'm like, hey, I have tracking showing that. And then he just super passive aggressive, just like he thinks he's freaking way cooler than he is. Don't hear from him again for like another month. It's like the last day he could file a dispute, files a dispute, and it was going back and forth for a month on PayPal.
Wow.
To make sure I got paid out. And I'm like, yeah, this is not a thing I have to worry about on eBay at all. It's
Sure.
done that day.
Did you win the dispute at least?
Yeah,
Okay.
all I had to do was upload tracking showing it was there, and then honestly, PayPal probably paid him out too.
Okay.
Like they probably ate it. But no, I was fine.
So goods and services is pretty bulletproof, even if you're not on eBay.
If you provide a thing saying delivered,
Mm-hmm.
they can't. At the very least, they can't claim it wasn't delivered.
Sure.
You literally have to. They could claim that it was damaged damaged in the process or something like that, but they can't say it wasn't delivered. The big thing, and I know it's like really big in Flesh and Blood, asking for friends and family for everything.
Yeah.
And I was going to touch on this too. Like, you're actually like, you're not bulletproof if you get friends and family from people. A lot of people think you are, but like, say we do a transaction for $500.
Mm-hmm.
You pay me or I pay you friends and family. I get the cards,
Mm-hmm.
and then I do a credit card chargeback.
Mm-hmm.
Get the money back from PayPal. Like, how are you going to go to PayPal and be like, "Oh, it was an actual business transaction. I was trying to avoid your fees."
You're throwing yourself
Make
under
sure
the
I
bus.
don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're screwed.
I think that's man, that's such a gray area. Like in the beginning of buying stuff online, did a couple of friends and family things, and for the most part it was fine, but I got really screwed on one transaction for like $300 or $400. And ever since then, unless you have a million reps and everybody I know knows you through, 6 degrees of separation or less, like I'm never doing it. And so I always tell people, especially if it's like a $20 card, man, just pay the goods and service. It's 3%.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like it's $1. Just pay it.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Ironically, I actually got PayPal yelled at me. I got like my account flagged like last week because a guy local to me who buys singles, like he sent me friends and family like $8, friends and family,
Mhm.
For a couple singles, and they flagged my account saying I'm doing business transactions through friends and family
Jesus.
for one $8 thing.
Wow.
Because I always use goods and services, and the one time I used it, they flagged me.
Man. So it's hard. Like something that I've been doing lately with people is saying like, I'm going to do goods and services, and maybe you can touch on this a little bit. PayPal owns Venmo, right? Do you know?
I'm not sure, honestly.
I'm pretty sure PayPal owns Venmo, and Venmo has a goods and services option.
Yeah.
And it's half of the fee of PayPal for some reason.
Mhm.
So I'll tell people like, I'm going to do GNS, but I'm going to do it through Venmo because it's only 1.2%.
Yeah.
And
why
they're
not?
cool with it. You know what I mean? Like 1%
Yeah.
is nothing. So there's definitely ways that you can do it strategically to save a little bit of cash if that's your huge concern. But the other thing I want to talk to you about as somebody who has a web store is 12% is the fee for TCG Player. Is it the same for eBay, roughly?
I'm not sure for TCG Player. I know for eBay it's like 12.9 is base, but if you get top rated, they drop it by 1%.
Okay.
And then you can also it's a bigger thing in Pokemon than Flesh and Blood. Like, Flesh and Blood again is so small,
Mhm.
you don't need to promote listings, which is just paying an additional percentage
Mhm.
to get a higher up on the search listing.
Mhm.
Odds are, if you're looking for a cold foil and Flesh and Blood, there's only going to be 3 of them listed in the first place, so you don't have to worry about that.
So what I wanted to ask you was, as somebody who owns a store, is it difficult to make a profit on eBay with so does the 12% cover shipping too?
No, shipping separate.
So
So
you're
it's
so you're paying
12%,
uh-huh,
and on top of it's 30 cents per transaction.
uh-huh.
So that's going too. Which once you get to that like $2.49 singles thing,
Mhm.
like that is a major chunk of it.
Okay. So what I'm wondering is, as somebody who runs a web store, I would have to imagine that your margins for the most part, unless it's something you've A, held on to forever, or B, is just a massive transaction, is it hard to turn a profit on stuff like that? Because they're taking like 12% doesn't sound like a lot, but when you're moving a bunch of
It
product, it is. Because you're doing the 12%, you're paying taxes, plus you're paying for shipping, right?
Yeah, you price it in. You have to price it in. Like you can't. I can't go on and like match the price on the Discord. That's 85% TCG low. It's that low for a reason.
Yeah.
Like that extra 12% is generally priced in. Like ideally, like in an ideal world, I try to price in like a 20%. If I know exactly what I paid for something,
Mhm.
which in this game, like there's a lot of times, like if I buy a collection of 2,000 cards, how do I break it down to what percentage of the collection have I paid for? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It gets there, you can't really do that very much. So like if I open 10 cases of product, how do I price out each individual card for a percentage of that?
That makes
You
sense.
just add it all up and make sure you have a margin from those listings, ideally.
Okay. Do you find
That's
it
what you're really going.
do you find it difficult to buy singles at a big enough margin that you um, are still making a comfortable profit in FAB?
Uh, Honestly, no. I haven't done many buy lists in the past, but I put up one of my first like longer buy lists last weekend
On Discord,
with
right?
all those prices priced in. What's that?
On Discord?
On
I
Discord.
think I saw
I
that,
had to
yeah.
pull, I had to pull it down in 24 hours because I had too many people contacting me. Like literally,
Okay.
like I was done
Yeah.
within 24 hours. I had like probably 15 people, something like that, contacted me
Okay.
to offload whatever, bunch of cold foils. Um, One I like my favorite, like a good example. Here, I got one right here. Where is it?
While you're opening that, I have seen that happen before, and I think that if you're gonna do that to try to, oh, you got a York, nice.
Dude, I love this card. This is my favorite freaking cold foil.
It's such a good.
But
The coloration is so good.
it's amazing. I love like the little hummingbird that's lit up.
Hmm.
Like it's like on his top right shoulder.
Hmm.
But I think I was buying lists for $120
Hmm.
a piece. Even on TCG Player, like low list right now is 250. Last two sold are 225. Even at 225, what you walk away making 190? That's $70 off of a $120 purchase.
Sure.
That's well over 20%.
Sure.
And you think about the way that I think about a lot of sales is like the time investment in it. Like people go, oh, you went through all that for $70, say $20 even.
Hmm.
But like, how much time invested was it to get that $20? The buy list is already there. I talked to the guy. That was 3 minutes. I had to open the package, make sure it was good. That's 1 minute.
Yeah.
I can do a listing in under a minute
Hmm.
if the listing's not already existing, and then it takes me 1 minute to pack it.
Hmm.
So the total time investment of maybe 10 minutes
Sure.
to make $20. Like that's the way that I look at it.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Makes sense. Um, so the last thing I want to kind of ask you and touch on is, what do you see happening in the market right now? What do you see the future looking like for Fab? Because I've been noticing every new set they've been printing, it seems like more legendaries per set, right? But they're cheaper. So we have this weird thing now where there's no first and second edition or first on unlimited. You just have one. And there's cards like, for example, I just got a Flick Knives, right? Because I want to build Azuri and try it out.
like $30.
Like 20, I got it for $20 because a friend was like, give me money. I need to
That's a
open
good deal,
something,
dude.
right? Yeah. So I've been noticing like back in the day, you couldn't get away from, the best deal you're going to get on a legendary is maybe a Scabskins or a tech plating for 50 or $60. And now you see legendaries. Ghostly Touch is another good example. 20,
Yep.
15, $25. Do you think that they're overprinting it, or how do you think the market's going to change with the way that they've started printing cards with the new 2.0 policies?
I think their goal is to get rainbow foil legendaries like that down to a cheaper price.
Mm-hmm.
Like they want those to be accessible and get them for like, I think $30 for a legendary, $40 for a legendary is pretty reasonable
I think so
when
too.
you're going to be using it every single game. Compare it to like a playset of something in Magic, you're going to pay a lot more than that.
Yeah, 100%.
And then if you want the higher end, you want the thing that's going to appreciate more over time, you buy the cold foils. And I think 2.0 is still very much in its infancy. We only have 3 sets out with it.
Yeah.
So we don't know how those cold foils are going to do in the long run.
Mhm.
If I had to guess, I think the cold foils are still going to do well over time. Like, I definitely think like a Crown of Providence or something like that, years down the road, is going to continue to go up in price,
Oh,
even though they
100%.
were printed more.
Especially the
Uh,
generics that are like playable in everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
that card kills me too. I literally saw somebody last night, like they were upset because they opened Arc Unlimited and they pulled a Rainbow Foil Skull Cap, and I'm like, man, 2 years ago you'd be losing your shit
Yeah.
if you pulled that thing.
Well, even now, like people like Mara, my friend Mara played it in her second place deck at the Pro Tour. Like it's still a good
But
card.
it is.
If you don't want to spend
That's one
$300
thing.
on a Crown of Providence, buy the $60 version that does 99% of the same thing.
Exactly, and that's one issue that I always have, and something I always try to bring up in videos of like, you don't need that like flawless thing. Like Skull Cap at $50 for a non-foil,
Mhm.
that is like the perfect entry point for a player. Like you will use this until you're competing for like top end tournaments.
And even
This
then,
will
you might still use
fine.
it. It might still make more
Yeah,
sense in your deck.
yeah. I pulled I think 4 or 5 crowns in the last 2 months. I sold all of them. I still use a Skull Cap.
Yeah.
Because it's fine. I do fine.
Yeah,
Like
100%.
there's no reason. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see where 2.0 leads. I like the idea that like rainbow foils are cheap and they're accessible, but I do think there is like margin there to be made. Like I touched on it earlier with Ghostly Touch. Like
Mhm.
I was buying like at the bottom, I was buying them for around like 16, 17 a copy.
Mhm.
Then Prism gets announced, like new Prism gets announced, they spiked to 40, 45.
Mhm.
That's more than a doubling. So after shipping and fees, say I walk away with 30, I made $13 on $17. That's like a 40 something percent margin.
Yeah,
That's really good.
that's great.
And you do that over 20 copies, there you go.
So it's a numbers game. The people like me that are just collectors, right? Like so two things. The first thing is I'm the guy that will try hard my way to the best copy, right? So
Yeah.
I got the flick knives for $20 because my friend had it and it was there and I want to try the deck, right? There's if 1,000% possibility that if I enjoy playing Azuri, I'm gonna sell the rainbow foil and buy the cold foil.
Yeah.
Like
I was actually meaning to ask you that
huh,
because I remember when you first started playing and you would literally message me going, give me the most beat up,
yeah.
destroyed copy for as cheap as possible. And you would take all of my light blade cards
Yeah,
and
give
like
me
I
all the
just
garbage.
sell them on eBay.
Uh-huh.
And you're like, I'll take them. I was like, and then now you're buying. I don't know if you've said it on here, but you're buying
The tunic and stuff.
crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing is like I didn't know if I was gonna enjoy the game as much then. So
That's fair.
as a new player, I was like, I don't want to get too financially invested in this. But
Yeah.
now I've been playing for a year and a half, and I'm like way too invested in it. So I'm figured if I'm gonna be buying this stuff and I'm gonna be playing for a long time, as it is now, I might as well invest properly now so that 10, 15 years from now, if the game's still around, I can put my kid through college. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's 1,000% chance I'm going to buy the cold foil flick knives if I enjoy the deck, and probably anyways. And like I played at the calling at the Pro Tour after I got destroyed in the Pro Tour, and some
Mhm.
guy who's become kind of a buddy of mine destroyed me on Riptide,
Yeah.
and I was like, this deck is ridiculous. I need to build this deck. And so the next day I go home and I'm like, I need to find a trench of the sunken treasure because that's what he uses for his chest. And so like I could buy the $20 trench, but no, I bought the $200 extended art trench because why wouldn't you, right? So I think that although yeah, I think what you're saying is right. Having a $20 legendary that's accessible to everybody and still having the collectability of the $200 extended art is it's probably
Yeah.
good for the game, right?
I like it, and on top of it, just the design of Flesh and Blood in general, just having your two like you're not shuffling those into your deck, so
Mm-hmm.
ideally, like they will retain some percentage of their value. Like you're always running the risk of a skull cap situation happening where they used to be 250, 300, and now they're 55.
Yeah.
Like that is a real thing that will happen probably, but they're gonna stay in mint like good condition as long as you're not like throwing them around and
100%.
protecting them decently.
I think the interesting thing too with that is that so Skullcap is maybe a niche example because anybody can play it, but if you're competitive in the game, you probably still want Crown of Providence most of the time. But things like Carrion Husk are really interesting examples. After Chain Eld, Carrion Husk was like it went from like 120 to like 80 for a little while. and then it tanked because everybody forgot about it. And I had 3 at the time, and they were like $50 each. And I remember trading one away because like I needed something. And 2 weeks later, they're like, "We have a new room blade," and then it went up to like $80, and I was like, "Damn it, I got screwed." And then like 3 weeks after that, it was like $200, and I was like, "What the hell?" Right? So that's I think another interesting thing for collectors and dealers alike. If you have a decent class equipment that you can maybe stock up on, like right now would be a great time if you want to start buying stuff to buy Oldham equipment. I feel like.
Yep. That's I literally, if you looked at one of my most recent videos, that's exactly what I've been buying.
Mhm.
Because again, Crown of Seeds for $60 in cold foil is it's
Insane.
dumb.
It's
Like
insane.
it's so dumb. And it's gonna be the same. It's the same cycle, and it's a TCG cycle in general.
Yeah.
Of like when the hype's not on something, it just decays to nothing.
Hmm.
But like that's when you need to be buying it.
Hmm.
It's not fun to like buy the cheap shit. That's like the thing that's not like hyped up. But like if you're trying to do this and grow something, that's exactly what you do. Is you buy stuff when it's cheap, and then wait for it to go crazy, and then you sell out of them.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna die down again. You buy them again.
Another great example of that was Striders. Do you remember when Storm Striders was like $20?
Yeah, I wish I had more.
Dude, me
I
too.
wish I had more of them.
I remember thinking to myself, like, I'm gonna buy a bunch of Storm Striders, and then like just never getting around to it. And then
Yep.
even now, it's like on the downswing, and it's still $100.
Even at $100, that's pretty damn good for a black border. Like I don't know. I hate doing the thing of like, oh, 5 years from now they're not gonna be around because like that like justification for buying is way overused in my opinion.
Sure.
But like it's fair for that. Like
Yeah,
that's
that makes
what
sense.
find a wizard that's not going to use that. You know?
It's like arguably the best card in the game.
Yeah,
Arguably,
exactly.
yeah. And like things like I bought a set of cold foil Snapdragon scalers, and
Yep.
I spent hundreds of dollars on. I think I spent $400 on it, and
Yep.
at the time that was like fair market value. Now I see people doing buy threads for $600-700, and it's like,
Yep.
okay, in a purchase like that, I feel super comfortable paying $400 because tell me a better common equipment that's played in anything aggressive all day long that you're gonna have on the table. Yep, you're gonna have it on the table for the whole game, right? So like
Yep.
you get your flex, it's protected because it's not getting shuffled, and it's just a cool piece of fab history to have, you know?
That's exactly what I did. I paid. I think I paid like 425 for that and a 9,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that's exactly what I did. I just relisted it for like 800 or something like
Yeah,
that.
and you'll get it.
I'll
You'll
buy
get
it.
it. It's going up again.
Yeah,
100%.
but like at the same time, like you could walk through like a thought process of like it being justifiable at that price of like how do you get that thing? You know, you open a $4,000 box,
Yeah,
and that's your big hit. You know what I mean? That's reasonable to say it's a $400 or $500 card.
yeah. I remember at Pro Tour, some guy opened a box of Arc, first edition Arc, and he was like kind of really bummed about it. And then he cracked a cold foil skull cap, and he was like, ah, you know what I mean? And it's the same thing as like cold foil skull caps you can probably get for about $1,000 right now, if you
Yeah,
look.
I just bought one 3 weeks ago for about $1,000.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like, what's the alternative? Are you going to buy boxes at $2,000 a piece until you find one? No,
Yeah,
no, you're not going to do that. Nobody's going to do that.
and the boxes always have that like the premium of like, oh, there might be a fable in there, you know, but like just like value wise in my mind. And I remember when you were talking about your tunic, like that's exactly the thought process that we walked through
Yeah,
of like this thing is like the best card to hit, and it's a case pull where a case is what like 15-20 grand,
yeah, it's insane.
and you can get it for like 3 or something like
You might
that.
as
That's
well just buy
stupid.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. Say it
that's
again.
exactly what I do with these.
Oh, the scabbies, yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
remember you picked those up. You were super stoked, and I think you got them for
yeah,
super cheap. And
yeah,
I've noticed they've been going up.
yeah.
There's no real. That's the thing that's weird too. Is there's no real reason for them to have been going up. Like Reinar hasn't done anything significant, but like people just start to realize like, oh crap, like this is if I'm gonna get it, I need to get it now because it's gonna go up. And
That's the thing.
when Brute gets good, you're not gonna be able to afford it anymore.
Yeah, and those like older cold foils. I don't know, like Fab is. It was definitely a big learning curve for me again because I came from Pokemon,
Hmm.
which playability it like literally means nothing
Hmm.
for these cards. It's all like how much people like them. What's the hype thing? That's all that matters. So like it was a big learning curve for me for playability to even be a factor.
Hmm.
Um, But when it comes to these old ones, I think it's just more like the difficulty to just acquire them. Because I think last I checked, I think 9.5 scabs in cold foil. There's like 50 copies in the world,
Yeah.
something like that, graded in 9.5. You know, at least 30 of them are probably in the hands of people that you're never going to get them out of.
Yep.
You have 20 copies, or try to grade one yourself. Which good luck on those corners from those cards. You know.
The other thing too to think about is so Black Lotus, right? That's the holy grail of TCG cards. Alpha Black Lotuses, there's, I think, with 99% certainty have been confirmed, there's 1,000 of them, like 1,000 and change, 1,008 or something like that. Alpha legendary equipment is probably less. It's like 900 from what the estimates I've seen. It's not going to get easier to get those cards. And they're not making a beta. They're not making an they made an unlimited, but it's like the premium's not going to be there like that. You know, you might still be able to get a decent amount of money 20 years from now for a rainbow foil tunic, right? But it's not like it's not going to get any easier. So if you want that crazy alpha cold foil legendary from Arc Crew or WCR, like, get it, because it's not going to get easier.
Yeah.
At all. Especially with generics. Like, it's not going to happen.
And honestly, like in the beginning of the year, we went through like a small cycle where like no one was looking at them, no one was buying them. And they just like decayed in value, and you're just looking at, you know, like, there's a guy on eBay auctioning them all off. Like, he's pretty much done with his collection at this point. There's a lot of information that we could talk about after about that guy, but he was just auctioning off like every like multi-million-dollar collection. And he's having 9.5 cold foils go for $1,100 or something like that, like all day, like for months. And by like the second, third cycle of him listing these, they finally spiked up. Yeah. And now when he lets go of them, they're like two grand at least.
People started paying attention, probably.
People finally started paying attention, and that's really what it took, is like eyeballs to get on it for the prices to go up. But it's finding those things before the eyeballs are on it is the hard part.
That makes sense. Yeah. That's so staying ahead of the game, essentially.
Yeah,
that makes sense. All right, man. Well, we're hitting an hour. If you are interested in what Mr. Tyler has to say about card stuff, he has his own YouTube channel that's much bigger than mine, and he uploads pretty regularly. I mean, you're at least 4x bigger than me, so. But he uploads pretty regularly. His content's great. I highly recommend checking it out. It is just GAMI TCG, right?
Yep. Yeah, for now. Name change coming soon. I need to get some artwork done if you know somebody.
Yeah, I got you. I'll send you some stuff. Also, right underneath his name, over there, is his YouTube channel. And he's a super nice guy. If you find him, hit him up. He will probably talk to you for a little bit and then ghost you, because that's what he does.
Yep, sounds about right.
But yeah, man, is there anything you want to shout out, or anybody you want to shout out, or anything you want to say before we go?
Yeah, Nat's coming up in Las Vegas. Check out, if you're here early, People's Card Shop and TK's Boba Shop.
Definitely will. All right, man. Thanks for coming on. It was awesome talking to you as always. And yeah, that's it. I'm Anthony DT Zakel. You can find me on Discord at Del Taco, and you can find me on Twitter at Of The Taco. Say hi. Thanks, man. Talk to you later.
Yeah, man. Bye. See you later.